All right, let's talk about the Jets. Last but not least, they really might be least. The
Yeah,
Jets, man.
probably the least.
So the one guy here that you do seem to like is Zach Wilson. You think he's kind of been establishing himself as the guy. You had him at 344 out of 510 for 37.25 yards, 23 touchdowns, 15 picks to go along with 64 rushes for 333 and 3 touchdowns. Not like amazing stats. That was good enough projection-wise to have him be your QB 25. You had him as 20 on the big board, so you liked him a little more than that. You said you're going to probably come up on him a little bit.
Yeah, I certainly am for a few reasons. One, the kid's looking really fucking good. I mean, he can sling the ball. The quarterbacks, you watch the ball come out of their hands, and it just is like effortlessly zipping down the field. And that was him. He had to move around in the pocket a bit. There's nobody open. Move, dodge the guy. Corey Davis got open, just zipped it like 40 yards off his hand. Boom, just flies down the field. Love to see it. Love the arm talent. And then the defense just keeps getting obliterated with injuries. Carl Lawson, their big acquisition, a great player, tears his Achilles. He's going to be out for the year. Then they just hit, I forget exactly who it was. I believe it was another secondary member. And this defense really wasn't very good at all last year. One of the worst defenses in the league. They were expected to take a nice step forward, which is why I had this offense at the minus 57 in terms of league total average, trying to run the ball 460 times. That's what Salah's going to want to do, coming over as the D coordinator from the 49ers. That's his mentality. I don't think they're going to have the ability to do that, though, now that they're losing their biggest horses on defense. I think it's going to be a lot more of a shootout style narrative. And plus, the running backs just suck. Like Carter was supposed to be good. We're going to get to that in a little bit. So I'm going to bump down these rush attempts to 440. That's even, I think, a little high. I'm going to bring them down to 420, but I'm going to bump up the pass attempts quite a bit. 420, one of my favorite numbers of all time. Such a tool. and then I'm going to bump up his pass
attempts. That one, the high school kids love that one.
Yeah. Ooh. I'm going to bump this up to 5. I really think he's going to have to approach 600 pass attempts, given how bad this defense is. So let's see what that does for the numbers. He was under 4,000. I think this is going to really bump them up. Yeah, so now 4,300, 28 and 18. That seems a bit right. I honestly might be even a little higher. I think he's one of the few rookies right now that you're going to get all 16 games playing on a bad team, so he's going to have to sling. And the arm looks just as good, if not better, than any of the other rookies we've seen so far. So why do I have him below everybody? That's kind of my talking aloud to myself here. I'm getting really high on Zach Wilson, especially as a potential bridge to the Trey Lance, who I love, I think is going to be the season winner this year, to the Justin Fields, who could also be that season winner. Give me Zach Wilson, give me Big Ben late, or of course Ryan Fitzpatrick. I said we've already gushed about him a million times. 2 good bridges there. Wilson giving you a bit more upside than a guy like Big Ben, who we know. Give me that uncertain but sexy product like Zach Wilson to pair with one of those other rookie quarterbacks. That's going to be my approach to everywhere this year.
All right, this was the biggest discrepancy as we move on to the running backs that you had amongst your projections to your big board, and I know that you have done a little bit to change it. I'm not going to read you stats, but I'm just going to talk to you about the running backs. We had Tevin Coleman, we had Michael Carter. You had Michael Carter as projection-wise your running back 22. On your big board, you had him at 40. How do you reconcile that difference?
As you can see here, I'm moving the depth chart. I'm going to also adjust the receivers while I'm in this tab, Corey Davis and Elijah Moore. That's going to change as well. So we'll be talking about those things in a second. But yeah, nobody's fallen harder this last week on my big board than Michael Carter, who was in my top 25 running backs.
Yeah.
And he has also now been entering the game behind Tevin Coleman, behind Ty Johnson, and also behind LaMichael Pirine. It's asinine. He didn't play any first-team snaps with Zach Wilson so far this entire preseason. And that goes contrary. The reason I had him so highly projected is all the reports were running with the first team, best pass-catching back in camp, clearly going to be a factor this year, a step ahead of all the running backs. And he can't play above any of them on the preseason. I mean, what's happening there? So he has tumbled down the rankings. Still probably the first Jets running back I'd take because, I mean, the other guys are Ty Johnson.
Yeah, but like, are you taking any Jets running back almost under any circumstances?
Exactly. The only reason you would is if you were in a situation, and your situation might kind of rival this, Nat, where you have one anchor, a great Christian McCaffrey, but you don't have a good number 2 that you feel confident about. I do think a guy like Tevin Coleman, at least early in the season, is going to see about 12 to 15 carries a week. So that's just some volume that you wouldn't otherwise have. So ultimately, I like that. The only reason I'd like these guys, I do like Ty Johnson because he goes in round 20 if you're drafting in deeper leagues. And Carter, I still think is worth a stab because he's a great pass catching back on a team that doesn't really have many of them. So I do think eventually he's going to get involved, but right now, not nearly as involved to be inside, certainly not my top 25 running backs, never mind my top 40 anymore. So I'm bumping down him big. I'm going to kind of make this mess of a projection. Like let's call Tevin Coleman 30%. Let's call Ty Johnson 18 or like 19. And then what's that going to leave us for, Mr. Michael Carter here? That leaves us with 20. Yeah, I'll give Ty Johnson 22%. And the rest I'll give to Michael Carter as like a change of pace guy. 82. So that means we have about 18. So let's give him to like 20. Let's give him 24. See what we're left with carries here. It's just gross though. As you can see, like I'm projecting this out and it's just like nobody knows how it's going to go.
Yeah. And I remain completely uninterested in any of these guys.
Yeah, right. Like the 22.
I appreciate you're trying to sell. You said, hey, this might work for your situation. No, there's a bunch of guys I'd way rather have.
Right, exactly. There's no clear lead horse, whereas I thought it was going to be Carter with about 40% of the carries. As you can see, I want nothing to do with this. Tevin Coleman, again, like late maybe could be okay. But yeah, it's not very exciting.
All right, let's move on to receivers. And just to mention breaking news coming through on our group text with the RSJOGs, reporter Duck says Etienne likely out for the season. So
no way, really?
Yeah. CJ's response, oh no.
Oh no, very, very emphatic response
there. Something like that. I don't remember. It popped up on my screen just a second. Oh boy, sorry, it was oh boy. Anyway, so that's the late breaking news that you tune in for here, or actually early breaking news.
I mean, we'll be doing that division, I think, tomorrow, right?
We'll be talking about them later if we want to talk about bad teams.
Tomorrow.
Don't sleep on the Jags when it comes to bad teams.
Tomorrow at 1:30, you'll get my updated projections. But James Robinson's going to soar. Like I already bumped him up, thinking that I accounted for the Etienne injury, thinking he was going to be out for, let's say, 6 games, maybe the PUP to start the year. So I bumped Robinson to like my RB20. He's probably going to approach top 12 now. I mean, he was the running back 4 last year, and now it's just him and Carlos Hyde. Like,
oh man, don't sleep on Carlos Hyde. He was kind of good 6 years ago. Anyway, some people in the comments are commenting on that, so we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Let's just finish this dumpster fire up real quick.
Right.
The Jets receivers, Elijah Moore, you used to be pretty high on him. You actually had him as your wide receiver 29 on projections, and you had Corey Davis as 66. But then when forced to go to the big board, which I know is more accurate now, you actually had Davis up at 33 and Moore had fallen down to 47. You like them each getting in the 100 target range, something like that. And then you got Jamison Crowder, I don't want to say the corpse of Jamison Crowder necessarily, but maybe like a deathly ill version.
Yeah, right. Because he was actually a stud for long stretches of last year. But a lot of that, Adam Gase loves peppering his slot. In addition to Sam Darnold, always targeting 25% or higher of his slot. That's just not going to be here this year with Moore and Davis added on the outside. He had no one to contend with last year, Jamison Crowder, Brashad Perriman, give me a break. So I had Moore at the top. So let me kind of explain why this is changing, because this is really important. I love Moore. Think he's probably the best talent here. Still could, by the end of the year, see him emerge as the number 1 guy. All the reports were in training camp he was dominant, looked like an alpha, training with A.J. Brown all offseason from that Ole Miss program that churned out DK, A.J. Brown, now him, and he's supposed to be like on their level. I mean, that guy could still be a stud. But a quad injury knocked him out of training camp for the last 2 weeks, and in that 2-week span, all the reports have been Corey Davis has emerged as Zach Wilson's go-to guy. They've formed an inseparable bond. They're killing it together right now. And what do we see in the preseason action? Davis has run 13 routes. He's been targeted on 10 of those. That's nearly 80% of the time he's run a route. He's seen the ball come his way. That's obviously not going to happen in the regular season. And of course, when Moore comes down, that's another big mouth to potentially feed. But Corey Davis in that report, like that is something special. So Davis has been among the biggest risers on my big board this preseason, a guy that I have I mean, you've heard me, Nat, say some of the most unthinkable things about Corey Davis.
Things we can't repeat on this show, and we swear all the time on this show.
They're more vile than anything else that's ever come out of my mouth. I have ripped that guy so hard, and still, I believe in Zach Wilson's arm right now. I believe in the fact that he's getting peppered. They're showing this rapport. And I really believe in the scheme. Mike LaFleur, comes from that Shanahan tree, was their passing game coordinator. The 49ers, LaFleur is his brother over the Packers. These offenses have become the new thing, and it's looking like he's executing it at a very high level. The spacing with the receivers has been great. Corey Davis has been running wide open multiple times, and that's kind of what happens in this offense. So I think Corey Davis emerging as the true alpha in an offense that's designed to pepper him, he's going to go down as a steal all the way up to my 77th overall, receiver 33, a guy that you'll probably be able to get in rounds 9 or 10 that should have gone 2 rounds earlier at worst. I could easily see him having a top 15 season. The only reason he wouldn't is because Moore is so good, Nat. Moore is unbelievable. If he plays.
I mean, we'll see. I am so skeptical of any pro Jets propaganda that you're throwing out there of any kind. I really am.
Yeah.
All right. Look,
it should be.
I feel that I've come by that opinion, honestly, over the past, 30 years. Anyway, let's finish things up on tight end. You had Tyler Kroft and Chris Herndon. When I did my research, you actually had them split up pretty evenly and with really no appeal either way. But it does appear that your opinion of Kroft has skyrocketed in like the last couple hours.
It sure has, and I'm bumping that up right now. I had him at about an even one, but Kroft has been running clearly ahead of him throughout camp right now, so I'm going to bump him up. And we saw this week in the preseason, 2 receiving touchdowns, the go-to guy for Moore when they got in close in the red zone. So, yeah, I'm definitely bumping him up. I got to mess around because Carter is now my RB3 on the depth chart. So I do think Carter is going to still see a decent target share, not 40%. Jeez. But yeah, so Kroft's red zone upside is very, very real. I think he's going overlooked, and fantasy drafts is a potential last round stab that could do a lot more damage than he's being given credit for. So I'm going to project him for 11%. Sorry, one sec. So we're missing that. Let's give him 11% target share. Most of that coming in the red zone. That's why I've now bumped him up to 6 total touchdowns. We'll give Michael Carter a 10% target share, assuming he emerges as the third down back eventually. But I think Kroft is a guy that 9 touchdowns might be a little bit hefty here. Let's give him 17% and see what that comes out to. I think 8 is very reasonable for a team that's going to be in the red zone more often than I think they have been in the last few years. Kroft, again, that LaFleur passing game coming from the 49ers, we know how they've used Kittle. Kroft is obviously not even close to Kittle, but as a red zone monster, I could see him really emerging and surprising and being one of those tight ends that everybody's scrambling to get within a couple weeks.
We'll see, man. We'll see. That's going to do it. That's the AFC East.
What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.